All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to this wonderful seminar. Thank you everyone for taking the time to participate with us today. Very exciting, and with our producers. So my name is Tara Empson, and I am the very fortunate daughter of Neil and Maria Empson, my two beautiful parents who met on a blind date many years ago and decided to move to Italy and dedicate their life to exporting and representing the finest Italian wines. And this said, I'm very excited to announce a few things with you today. So for some of you or most of you who were on our Barolo webinar last year, we had the opportunity to announce our 50th with Einaudi. And this year, 2022, we are beyond excited to announce our 50th of Empson. Yay, all very exciting. And in light of everything, we are here also to announce the 50th with our beautiful Andrea Costanti next year. So we have all these 50ths, which are really, really remarkable. And we would like to thank our producers for giving us this opportunity to just be able to announce this today. You know, when you sit there and discuss a milestone together, you know, you always think, oh, 50 years, how awesome. But, you know, it's 50 years of relationships. It's 50 years of struggles. It's 50 years of, you know, being part of celebrating the good times, but also the not so good times. And being able to change and evolve is what we're doing during this pandemic and reworking the future together. So I have to say thank you to all our beautiful producers for being part of our portfolio. And also, at the same time, I would also like to thank all of you here today, because it is because of you that we are here, because of the producers and because of you. And we thank you for choosing Empson. We thank you for supporting us, but mostly we thank you for supporting our wonderful producers. It really means the world to us. So today we have Andrea Costanti, yay, our next 50th, with Daniele Zeffirini, which, you know, they're wonderful producers, and we are they're going to take you through a little bit of the wonderful Brunellos that we're going to be tasting today and the love and craftsmanship that's been put behind them. Unfortunately, it seems we might have had a little bit of a problem getting a hold of Ian today. We hope he's okay and everything's fine. And if he does happen to pop on, we'll bring him in there as soon as we can. But in the meantime, I'm going to open up the floor to Andrea Costanti, and he's going to start giving you the layout of all the deliciousness that we have for you today. Thank you so much.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, Tara. I'm very excited and I'm very proud to be now the oldest supplier of Empson. 50 years with cooperation with very good friends. I have Neil and Maria are wonderful people, and I love her very much. So we think to the next 50 years, I don't worry about my future, because I have two sons and one daughter. My daughter is the same age of Tara. Maybe in 50 years, one of my sons will be running the winery. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today in this webinar. My name is Andrea Costanti, and I'm running Costanti Winery since 1983. We are located in Montalcino. And Montalcino is a small town, 30 kilometers south of Siena. Montalcino is not far. The hill of Montalcino, the city is quite at the top of the hill, and the hill of Montalcino is not far from the sea. And the influence of the sea, the winds coming from west, is very important for the microclimate of Montalcino. So Montalcino, also if the area is not huge, but there is differences between the subzones we have, And we can say we can share at least the hill in four different corners, 4 different microzones. Costanti Winery is located in the most traditional area of production of Brunello di Montalcino. Okay, this is my property. So my family, a part of my family came to Montalcino in 1555, at the end of the war of Florence, between Florence and Siena. A part of my family was living in Venice, and a part of my family was living in Siena. And in the middle of 16th century, they reached Montalcino, and they had different properties south of Siena, and Colle al Matrichese, where the winery is actually located, is the one dedicated to the production of wine and olive oil. And my family, my ancestors always produced wine. So we can say we are producing wine in Montalcino since the middle of 16th century. One of my ancestors, very important in the history of the Brunello, is Tito Costanti. Tito Costanti was a lawyer, and he was a part of a sort of club between friends, including Biondi Santi, Padelletti, Anghirelli, Tamanti, the pioneers of the Brunello di Montalcino. The Brunello di Montalcino is a wine which borders in the second part of 19th century, and exactly Tito Costanti in 1870 presented the wine with the name Brunello on the label, coming from 1865 vintage. So it means 65 presented in 75 years after the vintage, exactly like we do today with the Brunello. So the Brunello was a sort of revolution in the way to make the wine in Tuscany. Until that time, in all Tuscany was producing wine with Sangiovese, but not pure Sangiovese. We used to blend the Sangiovese with other red varieties, and including in Chianti area, Canaiolo and Colorino. In Montepulciano, we had Sangiovese with Prugnolo Gentile, or Alicante, in close to the coast in the area of the Morellino di Scanzano. And also, producer used to add to the wines also white variety like Trebbiano and Malvasia. So the wine was a wine not very strong. It was a wine easy to drink with little alcohol and very light in color. So the revolution in Montalcino was to start to produce a wine using 100% of Sangiovese. And this is a great idea because we have a great territory in Montalcino, and we have a variety with the Sangiovese, which is able to express and valorize the uniqueness of our area. And Brunello, the reason of the name is that using 100% of red variety, they started to produce a wine much more rich in color than they used to do before. And so Brunello means we can translate Brunello in pretty dark. I was talking about Tito Costanti, and the wine he presented in 1870. Unfortunately, I don't have any bottle. I only have papers at my wineries. I only have acknowledgement, but not bottle. That's why Biondi Santi, which is my neighbor, is a little more famous than Costanti, because they are making wine professionally since that time. So the name of the winery is Colle al Matrichese. Colle means hill, and the Matrichese is coming from the Latin name Mater Ecclesiae, which means Mother of the Church. Matrichese is the name of a very old convent. Now it doesn't exist anymore. It was destroyed about 1,000 years ago. We have at the winery, we have a small chapel, a small family church with the portrait of Santa Maria di Mater Ecclesia. If Gaetano can show the map of the winery, thank you. Okay, since we are between the oldest producer of Brunello, we are located in the most classical area of production of the wine, where the Brunello was born about 2 centuries ago. The winery is 2 kilometers east of Montalcino. The altitude of the vineyards is between 60 and 1,700 feet on the sea level, and we have about 10 hectares, 23, 24 acres of Sangiovese in production. And also, if the winery is located east of Montalcino, the single vineyard have different exposure. The soil is very rocky. So the upper part of Montalcino is made by a kind of rock which is called galestro. So this is our vineyard, and you see our coat of arms on a big stone. This is a piece of galestro, which is a rock made by calcareous rock and slides of sand. So it means in every single vineyard we have a different percentage of between sand and stones. We don't have any clay in the vineyard. And another very important characteristic of our terroir is the microclimate. Our area is, generally speaking, the upper part of Montalcino hill is very dry and very windy. Can be very cold in winter time. We usually have some days of snow during the winter, and never too warm during the summer. We can have because thanks to the wind. So the wind can be boring for us, but I never complain about wind because it's one of the secret, one of the aids of our microclimate. Because the wind keeps the air very clean, take away the storms and the fog. The upper part of Montalcino, many here, especially in winter time, lies above the level of the fog, which is on the valley a few meters below. So we talk a little bit about the map again, please. Okay. Casottino Vineyard, which is that one, is a vineyard is very famous because I've seen this vineyard, picture of this vineyard everywhere. Okay, a little right. Okay, we see the small Casottino is the name of the vineyard because the vineyard takes the name from the small house in the middle of the vineyard. And now we use the Casottino for the production of Vinsanto. We hang inside the grapes of Sangiovese to get dry, and then we have the small barrel caratelli inside for the aging. So we see also the roof of the fermentation area, which is right in the middle of the vineyards. Casottino is a very special vineyard because is a real acknowledgement is a witness of the global warming. Because until 2000, in Casottino, in this piece in this part of the winery, we used to grow olive trees. Because it was not up for the ripening of the Sangiovese, because the exposure. The exposure of this vineyard is northeast, which was considered not good until the global warming. So now, especially in warm vintages, we have the best wine from this vineyard. At Costanti, usually we make the harvest at the end of September, beginning of October. And the microclimate, the weather during the last month, the grapes, after the storm, the rains of August, it's very important, the kind of weather we have, because we have a very nice temperature during the day, but we dip about between 20 and 25 degrees. So very nice during the day, not too warm, but we had cold at night. When the sun goes down, cold winds are coming, and the wind keeps the temperature very nice and very fresh during the day, but we have a very important difference in temperature between night and day. And this difference in temperature is very responsible of the aromas of the wine and of the elegance of the wine. And it's very important because the cold at night keeps the acidity in the grapes. As you know, the balance between alcohol, between sugar in the grapes, alcohol in the wine, and the acidity is the most important characteristic for the Sangiovese. We don't make any difference in quality between grapes, so it means we don't have first choice of grapes or second choice, different choices of grapes. We try to do the best. Every year we can do according with the characteristic of the vintages, and simply we change the quantities of our wine. So it means in very good vintages we produce, in good vintages we produce. We don't produce Brunello Riserva, we produce Brunello and Rosso di Montalcino. But my idea is to produce, I don't want to produce a great Brunello and bad or, so Rosso di Montalcino is not the second choice of the Brunello. It's only a younger wine. And there is vintages in which I produce more Rosso di Montalcino, and other vintages in which I produce more Brunello. But in the great vintages, a part of the production of Brunello is Brunello Riserva. Brunello Riserva is the characteristic of Montalcino, is the tradition of Montalcino. So the cru or the single vineyard in Montalcino is a new way. It's not like in Piedmont or in France. The tradition of Brunello for the most important wine of the winery is the Riserva. The Riserva is the best of the vintage, in a great vintage, the best wine we have, able to age for a very long time. And also the way we make the Riserva is a witness, can be considered a witness of the climate changing, because the average of, so in the last 50 years, the average of Reserva every 10 years was 3, maximum 4. And now after 10, we have 5 vintages, some aging in the cellar and some on the market or in the last years. We had 5. So it means in the last vintages we have more chance to increase the quality of our wine and more chance to produce the reserve.
Thank you again. I apologize for being late. I just had some difficulty connecting, and I'm sure the tasting went very, very well with Costanti. And I think before we move on to Fuligni to complete the tasting, and then at the end we can answer questions, I think the important thing is just to reiterate that it's an historic moment for Montalcino, in that we have a succession of really remarkable vintages. There have been moments in history where there have been really, really great vintages, but this is the first one where we have first the 15 and the 16, which are 2 of the truly greatest vintages of all time, and now the 17, which is also a very, very good vintage. And I think that it's an historic opportunity also for wine lovers to appreciate what Brunello di Montalcino is all about, what the expression of Sangiovese can be in the terroir of Montalcino, because we have the ability to have 3 different vintages that are remarkable in their own way. And we shouldn't forget, of course, the 13 vintage, which is a fantastic vintage, often forgotten, but very classic vintage, and a very elegant, very refined wine. So it's really the best of all times for Brunello lovers. Maybe we'll go on to Daniele then, so he can finish his tasting, and then at the end we can definitely talk more about Montalcino and also answer the questions. Is that okay?
That's wonderful, Ian. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think everyone gets to taste, and whoever would like to continue on for additional information. Yeah. We all know that everyone on this call, you're always very busy, hopefully selling lots of Empson wines. Just saying.
Ok. Daniele.
Ciao.
Ciao Daniele, come va? Ciao, ciao, ciao. Oh, benissimo, grazie,
okay.
Grazie davvero.
Okay.
So, the Fuligni estate, for people who I think most of the people listening in are very, very well learned, but along with Costanti and Fuligni, I really believe we're in the presence of 10 of the best estates in all of Montalcino. There's a lot of very fine estates in Montalcino, and each will often represent the kind of Brunello, the style of Brunello that can be made in the respective Montalcino area. But I think that there's this area more or less in the center of the Montalcino denomination that gives really the most complete, most refined, truly most excellent Brunellos made. And Costanti and Fuligni, which really aren't that far apart, are really smack dab in the middle. I imagine that you've already mentioned that there's many different ways that you can look at the Montalcino denomination, but I just want to reiterate that the Montalcino area, in a very simplistic manner, can be cut up into 4 quadrants: the northeast, the northwest, the southeast, and the southwest. In fact, that's a little bit of a simplification, because the northwest area of Montalcino doesn't really have that many vineyards. So the majority are located in the northeast, the southeast, and the southwest. There are communes associated with each one of these quadrants, and they're good to know because the wines of each commune will be different. And much like you talk about Pauillac and Margaux in Montalcino, in Bordeaux, and much like you talk about Chambord-Musigny and Corton in the Côte de Nuit and the Côte de Beaune, it's the same thing here in Montalcino. So the wines of Torrenieri are going to be usually a little bit on the more elegant, lighter side. The wines of the south, which is in the northeast, Torrenieri. In the southeast, we have Castelnuovo dell'Abate. The wines are much fleshier and much warmer, very ripe, but a blessed area because the Sangiovese does very well there. And then we have the area of Sant'Angelo in the what we could call the southwest, Sant'Angelo in Colle, higher up, Sant'Angelo Scalo, lower down. And these are also Brunellos, typical of the south side, much warmer, much riper, bigger wines. But again, there's a big difference between Sant'Angelo in Colle, higher up, and Sant'Angelo Scalo, lower down. But in fact, it's more complicated because there's the area of Camigliano, of Tavernelle. So there is a whole zonation to Montalcino that is going to give you very different wines. And it's not that one is better than the other. You can't really say that Margaux is better than Pauillac. You can't really say that Chambord-Musigny is better than Gevrey-Chambertin. And you really can't say that about the Brunellos from the different communes in Montalcino. Also because in certain vintages, some wines will be favored with respect to others. But the main thing is that the area where Costanti and where Fuligni is chock-a-block with great estates. And it's really this area that goes from the area of, I could say almost to the northeast of the town of Montalcino itself. You see it there on the map. It's really an area where historically you really have a concentration of fantastic estates. Coupled to an amazing terroir, Fuligni and Costanti are blessed with two of the best winemaking teams that there are in all of Montalcino, not because Andrea and Daniele are here and we want to be kind to them, but it really is the royalty of Montalcino. I really believe that. I mean, anybody who's read me over the last 20 or 25 years knows that I repeatedly score these wines very, very high. I'm not the only one. There's many other wine writers who feel the same way, because the wines really are the ones that embody at once the refinement of the Sangiovese of Montalcino and at the same time the power of the Sangiovese of Montalcino, which you may not get elsewhere. So really we have two leading estates. I mean, the analogy would be the Margaux, the Haut-Brions in Bordeaux. They would be the Rousseaus or the DRCs in Burgundy. So, and we're lucky today because we have some great vintages, beginning with the ones that you have in your kits today. So, anyways, Daniele, the first thing is you should tell us a little bit about the Fuligni estate and why it's so special. Daniele, ci vorresti dire una cosa perché è così speciale Fuligni e cosa vi caratterizza?
Fuligni is special because the zone is special in Montalcino. The North zone is one of the most suitable for the production of the elegant wine, and the zone where the Brunello was actually born. The type of soil, the exposition on the vineyard, the temperature, the terroir in total. In the north, in the north zone, we have the typical soil of the north, the merle, the limestone, the skeleton grain, the soil that gives the wine the acidity, the minerality, the elegance, the aging potential. And it's a zone that gives the wine some type of characteristic.
So it's they're always characterized, the Fuligni Brunellos, by having a sort of a steely quality, a refined quality. Like I said, very similar to the Costanti wines, refinement and power at the same time. Power is a relative term with Sangiovese. It's not a Cabernet Sauvignon, but certainly a refinement that is not there otherwise. And in the kit, we have both the Brunello and the Brunello Reserva. Again, I apologize, I wasn't here at the beginning. Did you get a chance to talk about the differences between Brunello and Brunello Reservas? Gaetano, did you already talk about that a bit or not?
Just a bit. It was Andrea.
Okay, Andrea. So you went through that. So I guess the first question, though, for you would be, Daniele, in your estate, what is the difference between what is your view as opposed from Brunello to Brunello Riserva? Daniele, per te la differenza tra una riserva e un Brunello normale?
Two different expression of the same grapes, because the Riserva is made by our oldest vineyard, oldest 30, 35 year old or older, and with deep, the roots very deep, and with our best quality grapes. It's a wine with a different aging potential compared to the Brunello vintage, the Brunello, the regular Brunello. But it's necessary, it's very important, make a very good Brunello regular to make a good Riserva. When you open a bottle in Montalcino, an old bottle, we open a bottle of a Riserva. Riserva is the best expression of our wine, in my opinion. There's different the component in the wine, the different acidity, different concentration of the anthocyanins, on the polyphenols. It's our best wine. The different is this.
Yeah. So the thing is, as you might have already said, historically there isn't really a tendency to have cru wines in Montalcino. The average ownership of land there is small, so it doesn't make much sense for a small estate that maybe has only 5 or 10 hectares to go making many different crus. So the Riserva becomes, in effect, the best wine of the estate, the excellence of the estate, and it's really where the best grapes go into to make a special wine that will age. So Brunello, by definition, will age. The Brunello Annata will age very well, but in fact, if you go to an estate, like Andrea was saying at the end of his presentation, if you go to an estate, you know, when they have to open a real old wine, it's almost always the Riserva they will open, although the regular Brunellos will age very well too. So the Riserva is usually also a wine that will come from specific parts of the vineyard itself. So in the case of Daniele, you saw on the map there that there's a bunch of different vineyards like Ginestreto and San Giovanni and Vigna del Piano and Vigna del Piano and Bandita. Yeah. And most of the time, his Riserva, in fact, will come from the San Giovanni and Vigna del Piano vineyards, because those are the grapes that are going to give you, because of their acidity, because of their pH, because of their total extract, they are going to give you wines that will age over time, and therefore are more prone to giving you a Riserva quality wine. And so that would be the essence of a Riserva. And this is why the Riservas will cost a lot more. They're wines that really embody the excellence of Montalcino. They embody the spirit of Montalcino, and they're wines that, in fact, can age, which is something that defines the age-worthiness, is defining for the great red wines of the world.
So I had a question regarding that. I mean, for the producers as well. When being such an integrated part of your lifestyle, you know, you have these choices, and, you know, when you sell abroad, yes, you know, aging is a very important quality, but as a day-to-day lifestyle, when do you drink your wines? So when you open a Riserva, what do you pair them with versus, you know, more day-to-day, easier for a certain lack of terminology? How do your wines integrate into your life?
Who wants to answer that one? Comincia Andrea. Comincia tu, Andrea. Andrea, you answer that question first, and then Daniele. Daniele, così Ti ho fatto un favore, puoi ascoltare quello che dice Andrea. Daniele, I just did you a favor. You can copy what Andrea said. Andrea, you go for it.
You're on mute. Sei
Hai
mutato.
microfono spento.
Do?
Yeah. Good.
No.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So, Roberto, the owner of the winery, of Fuligni Winery, and me, we are very good friends. Roberto is maybe my best friend, and we used to often, especially before the pandemic, and I hope to go back to the normal life as soon as possible. And we used to drink the wine together. We used to drink the wine before bottling, and we have the occasion to drink the wine after they go on the market after a few years to feel the real potentiality of the wine. There's no special occasion. Every occasion is good to drink a bottle of wine. And but for example, I'm very lucky because my last son Giovanni was born in 2004, which is a great vintage. And I bought special bottles for him, 27 liters, 12 liters, something like this. And so he will choose when to drink this bottle, maybe when he will marry or when he will degree or something like this. But we don't think we had a special, we need a special occasion for drinking a wine. It depends on the mood, it depends on the moment. Maybe when my team, which is Fiorentina in football, we win the championship, and I have to wait a lot.
By the way, that's listening to Andrea, that's an example of what I was referring to earlier. So 2004 is a great vintage for Brunello, and that's true. It's one of the great ones, along with 2006, 2008, 2010, and 15 and 16 and 17. But the key is that in an area like Costanti's and Fuligni's, the vintages are usually similar. The wines will be slightly different based on the vintage differences, but it's rare to have a truly bad vintage in these blessed areas. That's why you're really talking about the qualitative heart of the Montalcino denomination. Vice versa, the 2004 vintage, as good as it is, in some of the warmer areas of Montalcino, even though they're great wines, they're almost too warm for it to be as great a vintage as it was over in this part of Montalcino. So that's an example of how you have to interpret the vintage and apply it to each area. As far as Fuligni invece, secondo te, quando è l'occasione giusta per aprire una bottiglia o di normale o di riserva? When's the normal time?
As told Andrea, non existe a specific moment for open a reserva. In the sofa, near the fire, or with the friends, because the wine is condivisione. In the table, during the dinner, with a special food. And the Brunello, the Reserva, it's incredible wine, and the only moment is perfect.
And that's I think fair enough. You know, I think there used to be the tendency to think of the important red wine, the big red wine for a special occasion, and then often these bottles would end up gathering dust, and only, you know, you keep waiting for the special moment. But in fact, I think in the past decades, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when there was a different climate and there was a different winemaking methodology, some of the wines were born very tough and austere, and you really had to wait for them to become ready. Today, that is not really the case. The winemaking has improved, the viticulture has improved, the vintages are blessed with better weather. So the wines are much more accessible early. That goes for the Reservas too. So while it's true that the Reservas can be held on to because they will age better, all these wines enter an optimal drinking phase much sooner. So in fact, a good Brunello from, let's say, a Normale or a Classico, and the good Reserva can in fact be drunk much sooner. And so I guess really the message is not to buy one bottle, but to buy at least 3. So you can buy one and drink it right away. Then the other one you drink about 10 years later, 6 to 8 years later, and the third one you drink maybe 20 years later. And actually, you know, that may sound like a joke, and I know the producers are very happy and the importer, because I'm telling you to buy more bottles, but in fact it is what you should do. And let me tell you my personal story. When I started getting into wine, I was 16, 17, 18, and clearly, you know, you don't have much money at the time. And so when I started buying wine, because I wanted to collect it at an early age, I only had enough money for a little wine, but I always bought 2 bottles. Of every wine, I always bought 2 bottles, because if one had any cork problems, I would have been ruined. So I always bought 2. But the idea was also the one I could enjoy right away and one I could wait upon. Now, that's because I was a university student. I didn't have enough money. Ideally, though, you should buy at least 3. And if you really want to do things in style, you should buy 6. I think also, all kidding aside, that when it comes to vintages like 13, 15, 16, and 17, it's an investment you usually really don't regret. So I think that today, because of the weather conditions, because of the winemaking and the viticulture, the wines are more accessible, ready to drink, and in fact can be enjoyed sooner. I think also the skill of the winemaker is important, and I think that, you know, it's like when you buy a very famous car, be it a Mercedes, be it if you have the money, you went out a Ferrari, whatever, you know that you're going to have excellence throughout the small car, the big car, the A series, the S series. They're all going to be great cars. And it's the same thing with wineries, and not just Costanti and Fuligni. It's the same thing with all the great wineries of the world. The whole range is going to be great. In fact, I really enjoy the Rosso di Montalcino of these producers. We always talk about Brunello, but in fact, the Rosso di Montalcino is a great wine. And that is because you have the guarantee of quality of the house style and the producer's skill. And I think that all these wines can be enjoyed much sooner now than they once could have. And you're not really losing anything by opening them up fairly soon. Then, of course, the Reserva you can just hang on to for a lot longer. Okay, so that's that.
Can you give us some comments about the style of Andrea's wines and the evolution of his wines in the years?
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, it's always difficult when you have to talk about wines in front of the 2 producers, because clearly you don't expect me to say anything bad. But the fact is, I can't say anything bad. I mean, I'd be an idiot. Costanti is really not just one of the great names in Brunello land, in Rosso and Vermiglio land. It's just one of the great Italian wine estates, and that's true also of Fuligni. And again, not because they're here and I have to be nice to them. I think, again, anybody who has read me over the last 20, 30 years knows that I've always spoken very highly of these estates. Costanti is really one of the historic estates of Montalcino. We all know that Biondisanti is incredibly strongly linked to the birth of Brunello, but Costanti is too. Costanti is one of the estates that has documents referring to very old Vini Rossi, the Vigna di Brunello, red wines made already back in the 20th and 19th centuries. So it's really, you're talking about one of the most historic estates of Montalcino, one of the oldest estates of Montalcino, and that is important to realize. The wines are among the most elegant of Montalcino. You never have gobs of super ripe fruit. You never have an opulent wine. It's really not the style of Costanti. What you have is remarkable balance and remarkable refinement, but not refinement for refinement's sake. That's important. Both Fuligni and Costanti, you have lots of ripe fruit, lots of balance, but you have really elegance. If I had to say what the most typical, most traditional, most classic Brunellos of all are, these are the estates that I usually point out to. There's a few more, but not that many. So these are wines that are remarkably elegant and yet powerful, and that age remarkably well. I just did a vertical here in Shanghai of Andrea's wines going back to the 75, and they're wines that age remarkably well. I had the 75, the 77, and the 79, and even the 79, which is viewed as a readier to drink year, are in fact fantastic wines. So these are wines that age remarkably well. And like I say, 1975, 85, 95, 2005, 2015, 2000, it's almost a 50-year-old wine, and the thing is beautiful and drinking very, very well today. So these are wines that will age remarkably well. But you really, and again, I don't say this because they're sitting here, but we're really talking about the Rolls Royces of Italian wine, not just the Montalcino. You know, if you think of your 5 or 6 greatest Barolo and Barbaresco producers, your 5 and 6 greatest Bulgari producers, this is the same thing with Fuligni and Costanti. You can't go wrong. They are just as guarantee of great winemaking as there is in Italy. Like I said earlier, and I wasn't kidding, when you talk about Costanti and Fuligni, it's always been my view, you're really talking of the likes of Margaux, Lafite, Mouton, Haut-Brion, or if you will, Rousseau, Roumier, Rouget, Méo, Camuset. That's the level. And it's not to embarrass them, but that really is the level. Then it's a matter of individual tastes. You might like one wine more than another, but the level, that is what it is. Prego? Correct.
All right, well, listen, I know we're running out of time. We are going to try to answer all the questions that we haven't gotten around to. We really appreciate all your interest and a lot of you actually for staying on. This is really awesome. And for dedicating this much time to our wonderful producers and to Ian.
I apologize again for being late, sorry.
You were Italian.
No, I'm still trying to figure. No, I mean, plus I love to talk, right? I'm one of those people who belong to the school that I never say 2 or 3 words when 5 or 6 will do. So I love to talk, and so I'm really. Plus, these are 2 great estates. I really say that from the depth of my heart. From
the depth of your heart and from the bottom of the bottle. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, also some of the first I visited, you know, when I started out in wine. So I have memories, and I remember what Montalcino was like in the 70s and what it is today. And also 2 very kind people. If there are those who are listening who like to tour vineyards and wineries, Colli del Matrichese, Costanti, Fuligni, these are really 2 of the most beautiful parts of Montalcino and really worthwhile getting to if you can.
Absolutely. And one thing I love about Fuligni, if you ever go into their vineyards, you can find fossils, and I'm telling you, big fossils too. And if you ever go around their winery, they'll show you some amazing pieces that they've taken out. And it's amazing to even start conceiving that was underwater. You know, we have, there's just so much there, and it's absolutely beautiful. So, listen, again, Ian, thank you for selling some cases while you were on here. If you're looking for a job, we'd like to hire you. Resume, we love you, and we love you all. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, really. Ciao, Andrea.
Ciao, Daniele. Ciao,
ciao a tutti. Ciao to the panel.
Grazie mille.
Ciao a tutti.